yet.
Yeah. Of course, I think Rambo now, you know, they've just had the whole summer to themselves because they had no competition.
Sure. Oh, I know, yeah.
And so now they're going to, we'll see what happens because your picture and Cocoon and Mad Max, I think. Mad Max isn't everybody's picture, you know, it's bizarre.
I know, yeah.
Well, it's... and Mad Max was... Some of the people didn't like Mad Max. It was too bizarre for them.
Yeah.
But see, I'd seen Road Warrior. When? All right. Well, Bob Zemekis, it's nice to meet you because I've followed your work and most recently, of course, Romancing the Stone. Did you see the LA Calendar yesterday and the story about the new
Yes,
one?
I did. Yes, I did. It was very nice. Yeah.
Weren't you glad you weren't there?
It looked kind of hot and dusty, yeah. But I think that film is going to turn out very well. I mean, there's a great group of people doing it.
Were you offered that film?
Oh yes, definitely. But I was, you know, I mean, it wasn't something that we could even consider because I was in the middle of Back to the Future, and I knew that they had to start this summer. So they offered it to me sort of as a courtesy, and it was very nice that they did.
Yes. Do you think Louis Teagle will carry on the same flavor, or will he bring something else?
Well, I think all directors bring something else to their material. That's what makes movies so interesting. But I think that Louis, I'm a big fan of his work, and I think he's going to do a great job with the material.
And that picture will be out?
Probably next summer, or maybe even earlier. I really don't know for sure.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your picture, Back to the Future, which is a time machine thing, 30 years back in time. You're also the co-writer of it. What inspired you?
Well, it's a difficult question. I've always been a fan of time travel stories and of all the interesting time travel stories that I've read as a kid. But I think the thing that inspired me more than anything was the idea of what it would be like to see my parents at my age. If I were in high school, would I be a friend with my father? Would we be pals? Because you always look at your parents as your parents. And it's hard to imagine them as kids. And that was sort of the germ of the idea, and that's where we wanted to take the movie and see what we could do.
All right, then the parents in this movie, are they anything at all your parents?
Oh, you mean autobiographical? No, not at all. Not at all. No, no. The parents in this film are very much like. Well, they're designed to let the story move relatively economically, so they're kind of broad. But no, there's very little autobiographical about the movie.
I think it's such a hoot that your time machine is basically a DeLorean. I just laugh when I think about it. Now, when you started that, of course, none of that DeLorean stuff was going on, was it?
No, not at all. No, it wasn't. Our time machine was a DeLorean because we needed a car that looked kind of like a spaceship and had these gull-wing hatch doors. And the only two cars I've ever had that are the old 50s Mercedes and the DeLorean. We couldn't use the 50s Mercedes because that was a car that was around in those days. So the DeLorean was the obvious choice.
Now, with all the subsequent notoriety that Mr. DeLorean came upon, was there ever a thought or any discussion about how that could affect the movie adversely?
There was some thought about it early on, but now that the trials turned out the way it has, it doesn't even cross anyone's mind. It was basically a joke, and I think that's how it came off in the film.
Mr. DeLorean have any comments or any discussions with him ever?
No, not at all. I mean, he just gave us the clearance and the rights to use the automobile, and that was all done through the legal department. So no, I've never spoken to the man.
Of course, Steven Spielberg is the executive producer of this. Now, how did all of that happen? Did you and your partner take it to Steven, or what?
Yeah, that happened. We wrote this screenplay about 4.5 years ago, and tried to get it made all over Hollywood, and no one wanted to make it. Because I'm a good friend of Steven's and we've worked together in the past, I always have Steven read things that I write for ideas and suggestions. And Steven read it, and he loved it, and he wanted to do it. But I didn't want to do another film with Steven, you know, directing something that he produces until I had a chance to do a couple of films on my own. So I said, no, I want to wait and try and get it made on my own. Of course, no one would make it, and I went off and did Romancing the Stone. And then after Romancing the Stone, I could get it made, but I decided I may as well take it back to the original fan of the movie, and it worked out great.
Hold on a minute, Bobbie.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, do it.
Bob, I know Steven Spielberg over a period of time, and Steven says this himself, so I don't feel like I'm, you know, editorializing, but Steven says, I'm one of the great meddlers of all time. How much did he meddle in your project?
Well, he didn't. No, he meddled very, if to use that word, he didn't meddle at all. I mean, as a matter of fact, my relationship with Steven has always been one where he's all, well, as a matter of fact, what he always says to me is, it's your movie, Bob, it's your movie, and I'm here if you need me. And that's basically how it was. I mean, he's there for a lot of script ideas, and you know, he works very much in the classic sense of an executive producer, but you have the added advantage of him being such a wonderful filmmaker. So he's not only concerned with dollars, cents, and schedule. It's also the script and the characters and how the dailies are looking and that sort of thing. So he's very much gives the filmmaker his own head to go off and make the movie the way he sees it.
And of course, you have a lot of special effects in this film.
Yeah, there are some. It's not as special effecty as some movies are, and a lot of the special effects are basically to create things in nature. We have this big storm at the end of the film, and all the lightning and things like that are special effects, but they're not strange or otherworldly. But we do have quite a few special effects shots, but I wouldn't call it a special effects movie.
Was it your decision to replace Eric Stoltz?
Yes, it was. It was something, a decision I made about 4 or 5 weeks into shooting.
And for what reason?
For a reason that is very difficult to explain, because it had absolutely nothing to do with Eric's ability as an actor. He's a fine actor, and we got along wonderfly in the film and making it. And there were absolutely no problems with Eric and what he was doing, except for the fact that I saw his portrayal of the character being basically out of sync with what my idea for all these years was for what the film was about. And it doesn't have anything to do with his ability as an actor. He's a wonderful actor, and I'd love to work with him again. It just, I found myself with a very good actor cast in the wrong part.
And he wasn't able to bring what you wanted?
Yes, see, not really, because it was more of a portrayal of a guy who had more of a wisdom, which is just something that is in him as a person, and a more maturity. And that was something that I don't think, you know, anyone can act. It's something, I mean, he was a bit older than I think we in the way he approached things and saw things. And I think that was something that's just inherent. I mean, we all sort of change and grow.
Was there bitterness when he left on his part?
There wasn't. I mean, there was a lot of heartbreak, and I mean, it was the worst thing and the most terrible thing that I ever had to do in my life, and I mean, we both were devastated by it. But I don't think there is any bitterness, and I haven't heard of any since.
And Michael J. Fox, of course, is such a fine and very good comedic actor, but is a very good comedic actor. But you had such scheduling problems with him because of family ties.
Yeah.
Weren't you really terrified of going into that situation?
Oh yeah, it was a really desperate time. I mean, we worked very, very strange hours, and I have to give a lot of credit to the rest of the cast and the crew, because, you know, we had to work, and Michael, of course, he had to work all day on the TV show and then work with us from 6 in the evening till midnight. And from noon till 6, we shot everything that didn't include him, coverage of the other actors and close-ups and things like that. And they actually had to do the scenes and do their close-up coverage without ever having done a scene once with Michael, and they were really wonderful to put up with all that. Then, of course, poor Michael would come in dead tired at the end of the day, and then he'd have to work for the rest of the night. And he had no chance to put a lot of input in either, because they'd say, Michael, I'm sorry, we already shot it this way. You know, you have to be in this side of the room. So it worked out. It was rough, but it worked out very well in the end.
Okay.
Excuse me, Bobbie.
Originally, were you in on the decision to hire Eric?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's what the director's job is to cast a movie. But it was, the thing with Eric being in the film is that there was nothing that had been done badly. I mean, he wasn't doing anything wrong, and that's why it took so many weeks for me to see that my original vision of the film was not coming across the way I had envisioned. But yeah, it was originally my decision, along with all of my producers and the studio.
Okay. Well, Bob, good luck with the picture.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, hope it does gangbuster business.
I do too.
Okay.
Thank you. Were you finished?
For a two-shot?
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
that's
that's
just
fine.
an editing
Okay.
shot.
Yeah. Did you get a chance to see it?
Yeah, I.
'Cause I was thinking-
missed the print.
Oh, yeah.
And they were going to try to show it to me at University,
Mm-hmm.
but I couldn't. I think they wanted to show it Thursday night, and I couldn't get in till midnight.
Right.
So it was just one of those things that I.
Rolling.
As co-writer, what was your inspiration for the story? Are the parents then in any way at all based on your own parents? Was there ever any consideration about the DeLorean trial, etc., and how that might affect the movie? By his own admission, Steven Spielberg says he's a meddler. I wonder, how much did he meddle in your project? Was it your decision to replace Eric Stoltz? What was the problem with Eric Stoltz then that you had to replace him? When Michael Fox came into the, I better say his full name. When Michael J. Fox then came aboard, you had this horrible scheduling conflict. Okay. Just a couple more.
Action shots now, just react. Let's see it this way. There we go.
All right, let me give you a couple more questions, just one more, or one or two, okay? Why did you not do the sequel to Romancing the Stone? Do you think that Louis Teague will bring something different, or do you think it'll carry on in the same way? Okay, Bob.